We would like to welcome you all to the 16th Annual Stillwater Pioneer Athlete Memorial Ceremony. This time, I would like to invite up Sydney Foster.
Good morning, everybody. I would like for you to join me in a moment of silence to recognize all of our former inductees that you see over here. Thank you.
Now I'd like to ask John Talley to come up and lead us in a prayer.
Would you pray with me, please? Lord, thank you for the opportunities we have in America, and thank you for all the servicemen and women that help provide the freedoms we have to honor these great people of Stillwater who have left us a legacy in our schools, in our community. Lord, I pray for their families that are sitting here, that they would realize how much the people of Stillwater love them and appreciate the sacrifices that they've made to make this such a great town. Lord, we thank you for loving us in spite of ourselves. Help us to live each day. In your name we pray. Amen.
Thank you, John. At this time, I'd like to just introduce a few, we'll call them distinguished people that are here right now. First, probably and foremost, is Larry Francis, who works here at the school. Without him, he sets all of this up every year. We call him and say, are you going to be available? And he just tells us, don't worry about it. And he gets it done. So thank you, Larry. Also, I want to point out over here on the side, Dorothy Carmaine from the Stillwater High School Alumni Association. If you have not already signed up with the Stillwater High School Alumni Association, real good idea. They're very good in what they do, and they'll keep you posted. They've got a nice museum now, and it's really getting built up real well. Other than that, Paul Grant, football coach at the high school. Where's Paul? He can just stand up. All right. Doug Chesbro, wrestling coach. Chick Davis, basketball coach. I guess all the coaches decided to just sit together in one spot. Okay, then I'm going to see how this works out. Tom Kinnick, who has been this, that, and the other AD 22 times, and then Kurt Coble. Thank you, Kurt. Right now I want it, Max, will you raise your hand? Max Talley will be taking pictures at the end of the ceremony, family pictures. And so all of the family and the presenters, we would like to ask when it's all done, that, Max, you going to do it over here? We'd like you to all gather over here and we'll get family pictures. We also have a video being made. So all the family, we will end up giving a DVD of the ceremony and a family picture with a plaque. So I want everybody to be aware of that. Now let me see what my notes say. For those of you that don't know, this all started, the idea at least started in the early 90s when Nick Dreesen passed away unexpectedly. And Nick's dad, Ralph, was given some money after he passed, and he went to Coach Harris and said, I'd like to do something special. I have this money. What do I do? I hate to leave anybody out, so I don't know exactly, but I'm fairly sure that Coach Harris talked with Tom Derringer and Buddy Wyatt, among others, and they came up with the idea of doing this memorial. And they took the seed money that was with Dreesen, put it in a fund, and they started this memorial. People have donated. People just like you and other friends of the Pioneers have donated all along. In 1996, we did the first ceremony like this. This is now the 16th. In year 2000, we were able to take that money that had grown and provide a scholarship, a college scholarship to a Stillwater Pioneer athlete. It can be a boy, it can be a girl, we don't care. The people here at the high school have been very good about helping us, letting the correct athletes know that this is on. They apply. We go through quite an interview process and get it narrowed down. And finally, that's the tough part about this, because you end up, you want to have enough money to give it to a whole bunch of people, and it ends up being tough, because at a certain point, you start getting down to 2 or 3, there's not a whole lot of difference in between them. And you can't go wrong, but the problem is you almost can't go right. But that's kind of part of what this is all about, is raising money, and we give a scholarship every year. It is a total $6,000 scholarship. And we have, I believe, 4 or 5 kids in college. 5? We have 5 kids in college right now. Ann, are any of those here? Okay. Do we have any of the scholarship winners in the class, in here? Okay. You can read the names of those in the handout. I won't list that, but I can tell you what, it's incredible to go interview these kids. They're awful sharp. They're coming out of this high school. We're kicking out some awful sharp kids. Now I want to get to the program. Our first inductee is Ernest Bradley, the class of 1929, and the presenter for Ernest is his son Rick, the class of 1975.
Good morning. My father passed away this last June at the age of 99. So when I was asked to do this, it became a little overwhelming trying to think of all the different things he had seen, done, lived through. Maybe to put it in perspective a little bit, he actually saw Babe Ruth play in person. He graduated from Stillwater in 1929, where he excelled in baseball and played several other sports. He went on to further his career at Oklahoma A&M. And one of his favorite stories there was his senior year, he hit a home run in the bottom of the 9th to beat OU. When his eligibility ran out, he had one more year before he graduated. So the next year, he became graduate assistant. And A&M then happened to have a new basketball and baseball coach, and his name was Henry Iva. So he served with him. Dad went on and signed a pro contract with the Cincinnati Reds. He played several years in the minors, and then when giving that up, came back to Stillwater and played semi-pro for a few years. And one of his teammates, before he became a major league player, happened to be Allie Reynolds, who the Oklahoma State baseball field is named after. After serving in World War II in the Pacific, Dad came back and went to work for Oklahoma Natural Gas, where he met my mother. She worked there also. And she likes to tell the story that back then, people didn't really have cars, because right after the war, they just weren't available. So they were riding the bus one day back home to her house, and in his eloquent way, and he was such a loving person, huh, Mom? He asked her if she would like to have his name on her tombstone, and that was his proposal to her. After he finished playing baseball, his next athletic endeavor was golf, which he also excelled at. His best score was a 4 under par 66. He made 7 holes in ones. I'd love to make one. He shot his age at Stillwater Country Club at the age of 71, and he continued playing up until he was 89, when he finally had to, physically just couldn't do it anymore. Sports, though, his entire life, that's what we did. If it involved a ball, we either watched it or played it. Towards the end of his life, he watched a lot of sports on TV and became a Chicago Cubs fan. And myself being a Cardinal fan, we had some good-natured ribbing. But towards the end of his life, he actually changed over to the Cardinals a little bit because Matt Holliday became a Cardinal, and he was always proud of anybody who was a fellow Pioneer. But on behalf of my family, I can't thank the committee enough for this honor for Dad, to be inducted into this by your hometown, which he truly loved Stillwater, followed the Pioneers all of his life, and for athletics, which he also loved. We're very appreciative. Thank you.
If we could, we would like to get the family up here, if at all possible. We would like you to present this plaque to you.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Oh,
If you would you introduce your
Sure.
family, please?
This is my mother, Wanda Bradley. She and Dad were married 65 years. In the front row is my sister, Cindy, and she's holding my granddaughter, Parker. That's her granddaughter, Jacy. My daughter, Reagan, and her husband, Dean. My niece, Heather. My son, Greg. My nephew, Grant, and my brother-in-law, Earl.
carry that for me.
I always think it's interesting in some of these because you get especially grandkids and in a lot of cases great-grandkids that never had any idea what maybe great-granddad did. And it probably, a lot of times it's the first time they hear some of these stories, and it really helps out. Our second inductee is Jack Griffith, class of 1944, and the presenter for Jack is Winfrey Houston, the class of 1944.
I remember Jack and his brother Jim Griffith and their family when they moved to Stillwater from Texas during our years in junior high school. We were friends throughout the whole period then that they were here. He was a good athlete, and he was a year behind me in school. His dad was the OSU wrestling coach, Art Griffith, the first to follow Ed Gallagher. I tried wrestling in junior high school, but hurt my elbow, ending my short wrestling career. Since I wasn't involved in sports, our paths went separate ways, but it was a small high school and we remained friends. After high school, I joined the Army Air Corps and Jack joined the Navy. I have a vivid memory of meeting him on a train in Memphis, Tennessee, headed to Florida just after a hurricane. We had a good visit as we viewed the toppled palm trees for several hours. After the military and the war, we came back to college. We were in different fraternities, going our separate ways for a while. Jack married Harriet Arrington, and Barbara and I were married, and we were in the 50s club together with other young couples where we reconnected. Then we had children who also became close friends and grew up together in Stillwater. I definitely remember Jack being a conspirator for my biggest surprise on my 50th birthday. On Saturday, June the 1st, 1976, about 6 p.m., I was working in the yard and all sweaty from inside out. Even my shoes were sweated out. Barbara had me out cleaning the backyard for my birthday party that she told me was to be the next day, which was Sunday. But it wasn't, it was Saturday. I was very surprised when a dozen clean, neatly dressed people came in singing happy birthday, and Jack was right in the front row. Jack's name is an important addition to the Stillwater Pioneer Athlete Memorial. I'm pleased to be a presenter. Thank you.
Could we get the family up here, please?
Where do you want us?
You just stand right here. Fine.
Hi, I'm Jim Griffith, and thank you very much. Winfrey, thank you very much. Appreciate it. Nick, my nephew, Nelson, my nephew, Janet, my mom, Nancy, Jenna, Susan, my wife, Allie, my daughter, my Uncle Jim Reamy, Stephen, Gayla, and Alan Kramer. And thank you all very much.
That was pretty good. We'll have a picture right after this. Okay, it's over. Our third inductee is Bruce Irwin, class of 1959, and the presenter for Bruce is Gary Corser, class of 1959.
As student manager of the high school basketball team in 59, 57 through 60 really, 57 through 59. It was a great pleasure to always work with Bruce and members of the basketball team. Bruce's family kind of raised me as a honorary brother, I think. My parents had to spend my junior year in Mayo's Hospital in Rochester. And while I lived alone, I was always welcome at the Irwin house for many dinners and camaraderie, and particularly by their grandmother, who made wonderful cookies. Bruce was born December 12, 1940, to Nancy and Robert Irwin. Robert himself was a member of the Stillwater track team and OSU track team. Bruce passed away on December 15th, 2009, a few days after his 69th birthday. Bruce was one of those individuals who excelled at just about everything he tried. I'm going to read some of the activities that he was involved in. As a pioneer senior, Bruce was honored as a member of Who's Who, as president of the National Honor Society, as a member of the State Honor Society, and as a boy Rotarian, and as an Eagle Scout. He was a member of the Science Club, Mu Alpha Theta, the S Club, Pioneer Year book staff, and was chosen to attend Boys State. In addition, he was student council representative as a senior, which preceded his serving as a junior class president. Bruce's athletic contributions are as a starting senior center on the 1959 state championship basketball team. Bruce also played on the 1958 team, which lost in state finals by 1 point. We've already introduced Jim Barnes, who was in 2005 inductee into the SPAM Hall of Fame. Jim was moved to Stillwater to become one of our players and was declared ineligible. And the 59 team won their last 20 games and went undefeated to win the state championship. After graduation, Bruce went to Oklahoma State University and furthered his leadership and honors. He was president of the student government at OSU, two-time president of his fraternity. It was at OSU that he met Doris Main from Cherokee, Oklahoma, and they were married June 6, 1964. They honeymooned en route to Baton Rouge, Louisiana, where Bruce worked for 33 years for Exxon and retired in 1997 as national sales manager for the chemical division. After Bruce's retirement, he later moved from Exxon. He became missions pastor for Cypress Bible Church in Houston, Texas. He later moved to Little Rock, Arkansas to work with his son running Eurotech ICR Mid-South Division, which his son continues to run today. At the time I wrote this letter, Bruce's wife was still alive. Sorry to report that Bruce's wife died about 3 weeks ago. And he's still survived by a son and a daughter, Kristen. He's also survived by 2 sisters, Nancy Crenshaw, Janet Foltz, 7 grandchildren, 10 nieces and nephews. Bruce had 2 brothers that are also deceased, David, class of 1960, and Tom, class of 1969. It is with great pleasure that I introduce and nominate Bruce, who brings to SPAM the ideals of service and leadership that only a few have ever achieved. I'll ask the family to come up at this time.
Okay. He gave me the mic. It's dangerous. Thank you very much. Bruce's children were not able to be here today, but my sister Janet is here, my husband Jerry, class of 59, and our sister-in-law Sharon, who is David's wife. And we appreciate all of this for Bruce. Thank you.
Our 4th inductee is Don Scott, class of 1961, and the presenter for Don is Tom Doyle, class of 1961.
Don Scott was, excuse me, I haven't been talking. Don Scott was a friend, but he was also one of the nicest men I ever met. He was a gentleman. Excuse me. He was a gentleman, and he always presented himself as just that, a gentleman. I've never heard a bad word from him on any sporting field. I never saw him do anything that didn't deserve our respect. Needless to say, when you spend 3 hours a day, 7 days a week, practicing ball with somebody, you get to know them fairly well. And Don was such a man. He was one who spoke of the best in people. He was always looking for the good in others and found it. When all of us look and see people that we might honor, of the people I played ball with, Don would be the one I'd pick. He was such a gentleman. He always was competitive. He would pin his ears back, and yours as well, but he was a kindred spirit who loved people, and I believe that was his glory. He loved people, and it showed. I spent many days with him when I could not imagine meeting a more perfect young man. He just did things that made you proud. And when he was on a basketball court, he played with honor and integrity. And I just loved to be with him. He was a kindred soul in this, in the fight for being your best self. He wanted to be the best he could be. He worked at it, and he certainly earned the right. I'd like to now ask Cherry Brown to come up and to accept the award.
Thank you, Mr. Doyle, for that wonderful tribute. I'd like to ask Mr. Willard Abington to please join me, which he's here. I am the only niece of Don Scott. He was an awesome uncle. When I was born in 1960, my Uncle Don was so excited that I was born, but I was so excited that he was here. My dad was Ike Sanders of Stillwater. I know a lot of you all know who my dad was, or he was an awesome person as well. And my brother is S.T. Sanders, so I just kind of want to put everybody where I am. And I know many of you know who I am, but this is my family. And I do want to say thank you all for the nominee of my Uncle Don Scott. And I remember when I was born, he came to the house and he told me, he told my dad, he said, this is my first and my only niece who I will always love. And I cherish that because he lived that for me. I could always call on my Uncle Don to be there for me. I'm sad to let y'all know that his family could not be here. They have moved to Kansas. The boys are in Oklahoma City. Everyone is doing well. And again, we thank you for your tribute.
Before I go any further, I would like to have everybody, all the SPAM members, we meet all year long trying to put this in the scholarship deal together. So I'm not going to read off the names because the names are in the back of the program, but would the SPAM members please stand up? Don't hurt yourself. Thank you. I think for a lot of us, as we went through school, junior high or high school especially, and you started getting into sports, there was always a few coaches and teachers that were kind of special to you. All of us can get around 40 and 50 years later and we talk about Coach Caldwell or Coach Harris. And today, it's Coach Mahura. So to introduce C.D. Mahura, we are giving our Distinguished Service Award. He is here, for y'all that don't understand. giving our Distinguished Service Award because he is one of those people that we all remember, that he did a lot of shaping of a lot of young men in his career. And to present to him is Mark Grimsley, the class of 1962, and Kent Grant, the class of 1966.
Kent and I are going to do this together. I'll start out with, C.D. was raised in Ripley and graduated from Ripley High School in 1942. He was drafted in 1943 and had active duty in the 381st Infantry Regiment of the 96th Deadeye Division. He served in the Asiatic Pacific Theater, participating in the Leyte and Ryukas campaigns. He was awarded the Silver Star for heroism when he dashed forward under enemy fire to rescue a wounded soldier on Leyte. After the island of Leyte, he began a training for the Okinawa Division. He was wounded on D-Day in Okinawa by friendly aircraft fire, but returning the next morning only to be wounded a second time with Japanese rifle fire, bullet in his left leg. Besides receiving the Silver Star, C.D. was awarded the Combat Infantry Badge, Bronze Star Medal, Purple Heart for wounds received, and many other medals. We all owe a debt of gratitude for those who have sacrificed so much, so willingly for our country. I was surprised to discover these honors, as were the friends of mine that nobody knew about that. What a modest person. I'd be wearing the Silver Star every day I had it. 1954, he joined the Stillwater Public Schools and taught math, geometry, and physics. He coached football, basketball, wrestling, and baseball at various capacities. Talking to some of the people, he was very fair. Wayne Daughter played baseball for him and made a remark that he was hitting 400 and got an F at midterm, but he pulled a grade on up. Steve Gray made a comment that he could be coaching today for any of the college teams right now because he was so innovative. And Don Frank said they had a trick play for about every game, and some of them they won because of that. Let me see. After he retired, he had a general store and an auction, which he ran with his wife, Jean, for 15 years. When he retired of that, he had a 200-acre farm on the river, which he still operates. I always thought C.D.'s strong suit is adaptability to any situation. I appreciate his contributions to our country, to education, to coaching, and to society in general. I treasure our ongoing friendship for the last 55 years. He always made me feel special, as he did many others. It's been an honor to be counseled, coached, and taught by C.D. Thanks for good memories, and I'll let Kent give his.
Thank you. The first time I heard of Coach Maher, I was in grade school. He was the head coach of the junior high and had gone undefeated for years. The stories of his coaching methods became urban legends. It wasn't until I got to high school that I knew that all those stories were true about him. Coach was always ahead of his time. Years before multitasking became popular, we football players and baseball players were already multitasking. We literally learned football and baseball on the run. We ran before practice, in the middle of practice, and at the end of practice. Coach would say, "Boys, get on the line. We don't want that sweat to freeze." Coach had a strange sense of humor, even made Don Rickles look like a choir boy. Because everybody knew sweat wasn't going to freeze on August the 15th. Being a math guru, Coach was always thinking outside the box. Either he was drawing plays up on the ground in Claremore, Oklahoma, during the finals, or figuring out the probability of a play working. Coach would give us speeches, the whole team, but one in particular I will never forget. He had to sit in a circle around him. Coach said the players were complaining about playing time. He said that if a garbage man's son is better than the banker's man's son, the garbage man's son's going to play. Go home and tell your parents that. In 40 years of coaching, I've heard that complaint often. Thank you for your wisdom, Coach. Once you got over the fear of Coach Mahura, you realized he always had a quick grin and a twinkle in his eye. Never would I thought Coach would have so many career changes. He's a teacher, coach, farmer, merchant, auctioneer, and one I'd never thought of. He became a journalist. To you, Coach, thank you for all your wisdom that you bestowed on young men at Stillwater High School. Thank you for being a great part of the players' lives who are fortunate enough to be coached and mentored by you, because you are truly one of the good guys.
Coach, could we get you and your family to come up, please?
Now it's your turn. You get to talk.
I first would like to just thank you. I feel very humble and non-deserving. You worked quite a while to come up with some of that stuff, I think. I can say this, no one could ever have enjoyed their work as much as I did. Never did feel like when I got up and go to school in the morning that I was going to work. I just was going up to interact with a lot of good, fine people. Had I had any idea that I was coaching as good of players as I was, I'd have worked you guys a little harder. I can recall at one specific time that this has nothing to do with my coaching. I just happened to have good players. At one particular time, there were 7 former Stillwater athletes in college playing basketball at one time, 1 year. And I think, Tommy, I could be wrong. You failed to mention that you and Don Scott played on a 14 and under team that I coached in the AAU tournament that we won a state, something like that. Anyway, and it was because of the players, it wasn't because of me. Anyway, this is a tremendous honor to me, and I hesitate to try to name all of the good people that I've had on, because I would certainly leave a bunch of them out. And I apologize to all of you because some of you have changed somewhat. When I see your face is familiar, and I do not, you notice, I'll take a quick look down at the name tag, and I apologize for having to do that. I think being the only one alive that was presented an award, you people have finally given up. But you have that faith, and hang in there. I firmly believe that some of you out there are going to outlive me. Thank you very much.
Coach, do you want to introduce your family?
Okay. This will be embarrassing too, but I bet you I'll probably come up to some of them, don't even know their name. From right back this way, my brother-in-law, Cliff Stites, my brother in the orange shirt there. He's a full colonel, Max Mahur at one time. I have to say this, he had a sign in his yard where he lived, the best pilot in the world lives here. He won, his crew won a worldwide contest. I told him he had a good navigator on the crew. Next to him is my brother David, former teacher from the Chicago area. My brother Jim, a former teacher, his wife Nancy, and who's her? Let me look at you. Hey. That's my great-granddaughter, Madison, and Chandler here, and Morgan. And behind there is my granddaughter, Kelly, and Sherry, my son, Dan, my wife, Jean, and that's about it, I guess. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Coach. Got two little quick things. Remind all the family and presenters that we will be taking the pictures, so please stick around. And also, we had another distinguished visitor sneak in on me that I didn't see, Shirley Chesbro, who is Tom Chesbro's widow, and a very special person to all of us. Thank you for being here, Shirley. I'd like to introduce Mac Talley.
Thank you for coming. Several of my classmates were talking about Coach Mahura, and we can't let this get away. This is an opportunity that we've wanted to have for a long time to get even with Coach, but we couldn't tell you any stories because you can't really tell them among this group. But I will say this, he scared us. We were scared. You didn't want to do anything wrong with Coach because you were trying so hard to please him. So when you're a sophomore rhymes with stupid, so you're trying to do everything you can to please Coach, because Coach could, I think Kent called it dry wit or humor. Coach could get on you pretty good. He could question your anatomy pretty quickly, sometimes with one word. But when I was a sophomore, a couple of upperclassmen kind of took me under their wing, which I'm so glad they did. Ronnie Stout, Tom Hudson, great athletes. I grew up watching them. They were wonderful athletes. They played football, ran track, basketball. So for whatever reason, they became my mentor. And one of the things you learn about Coach is don't ever do anything that he can criticize you for. You want to stay on his good side. So what does he do? If you do something wrong, he's going to get on you. But if you do something right, and he says, "Boy, you did a great job," your feet never touch the ground. I mean, you were thrilled to death. So these guys kind of watch me, and they take over me, and we go through football season and then track. And as happens, seniors graduate, and I have my annual. When I was a sophomore, Tom Hudson signed it. So I'm thrilled. This is a guy I grew up watching, one of my idols. Here it is. Tom says a couple of stupid things about being a sophomore, but this is the important part from the guy that was my mentor, one of them. Best of luck in the future. Try to get on Mahura's good side. It's right there. So I lived with this for the rest of my life. I mean, I tried to get on his good side. I think that was great. Of course, Tom must have thought I was really stupid because by then I'd had a whole season and 2 semesters of geometry. I knew to stay on his good side. But Coach was hard, but he taught us discipline, teamwork, things that we all work with the rest of your life. I mean, I've used it every day, and I thank him because we're tough. We did things, and he helped us. Thank you, Coach. All right? Now, Clint talked to you a little bit about our fundraising scholarship to get the endowment up. There's a little envelope. If any of you wish to donate to our fund, we want to grow the scholarship. We would like to give 2 scholarships. We do that by your support. In the years that we've been here, we've been able to go from a $500 a year scholarship to $1,500. We'd like to make it $2,000. If anybody, and some of you will, or have had students in school, college, higher education, $1,500 a year is not very much money. It's great, but it's not very much money. So if you sit in a session where you've got 5 needing students and you think, oh my God, who am I going to choose? It's really tough. So, Jeff McMillan, when that accountant tells you at the end of the year you need a $25,000 write-off, we are a 501(c) organization. We'd love to take your donations, and we will use them well and make wonderful scholarship decisions. So, with that said, the families, I'm going to be the photographer because Ron Holt was called away today. If you will come up here, I will take pictures, try to take pictures. And we're about through. If you wish, and Jeff hasn't eaten all the cookies back here, we have punch and cookies. Please help yourself, mingle. Thank you for coming. We appreciate it very much. Thank you.